Hey there, race fans. It's race day, top 5 with me, Frank 5. Second race of the season in the books. First mile and a half of the season. All the chaos on the restarts and everything. And the man who won last year's race has locked himself into the playoffs, winning the race that is named after Pennzoil, and he had the sponsor to do it. Number 1, Joey Logano captures his first win of the season, winning the Pennzoil 400 presented by Jiffy Lube today at Las Vegas Motor Speedway over Nat DiBenedetto, Ricky Stenhouse Jr., Austin Dillon, and Jimmy Johnson. Big win for Joey Logano, winning obviously at a track that's sponsored by Pennzoil, and he had the Pennzoil colors today, and it's a track where Penske's been very successful in the past. A big day for Logano, great race car, kept in the top 5 for the majority of the race, hovering between 3rd, 4th, 5th, battling with his teammates Brad Keselowski and Ryan Blaney for the majority of the race, but Logano set him up in perfect position to win late in the race, especially when there was a late race yellow for Ross Chastain stepping in for Ryan Newman. I'll talk about that a little bit later. Logano and his new crew chief, Paul Wolfe. Let me remind you, Penske swapped all the crew chiefs this year, and Logano's got Paul Wolfe. Ryan Blaney's got Todd Gordon, and Jeremy Bullins is with Brad Keselowski. Joey Logano and Paul Wolfe. See, I got to get myself straight with the new crew chiefs and with the Penske drivers. Logano and Paul Wolfe, miscommunication, apparently told him to pit, but Logano stayed out actually. But that kind of helped him because he ended up winning the race after getting a really good restart and a lot of people behind him, hitting each other, and he was able to be in front of all the carnage, and that propelled him to win the race, obviously, and, pull away from everybody. And, of course, there was a lot of crashing towards the end. I'll talk about that a little bit later as well. But a big win for Joey Logano. He's in the playoffs. I mean, you kind of expected Joey Logano's going to make the playoffs anyways. So he's in, and he gets to compete for a championship later this year. He'll be part of the playoffs. Of course, when we come back here in the fall, it'll be a playoff race. So this is huge for Logano and this team to get a win at this track. And it can help them carry forward, not just for the mile and a halfs coming up, but also when we come back here in fall, September for the playoffs. So it's big for Joey Logano and the team. Number 2, Matt DiBenedetto, his first top 5/top 10 with the Wood Brothers. A second place finish. A big day for Matt DiBenedetto. Obviously, a big upgrade from Levine Family Racing to the Wood Brothers this year with an alliance with Team Penske. And they were sort of okay at the beginning of the race. They were hovering between the top 15, top 20, but then they kept making the car better and better in the final stage, got themselves in the top 10. They were one of the cars that also stayed out with Joey Logano and a few others, and they were able to avoid a lot of the carnage on the restart and leading to the finish of the race. He kind of got on the inside of William Byron going into turn number 1, and that actually caught a right tire rub in the left rear of William Byron's car, and DiBenedetto was able to pull away and hold off Ricky Stenhouse Jr. for a second place finish. But a big day for DiBenedetto, coming off a top 20 finish with a damaged car at Daytona last week. Obviously, the expectations are high for him this year to get that win, get the Wood Brothers their 100th win in NASCAR. Off to a good start so far. Still a lot of races left to complete, but so far, Matt DiBenedetto and his new crew chief, Greg Irwin, and the Wood Brothers off to a good start with a top 5 finish today at Las Vegas. Number 3, Ryan Blaney in position towards the end. I mean, he was so close to getting his 4th career win at Las Vegas today in another Pennzoil car. I mean, he had a really good car for the majority of the race in the top 3, probably one of the top 3 cars of the race, and it looked like he was in position to win the race late in the going, leading, holding off Joey Logano, and then a hard-charging Alex Bowman coming towards the end, but obviously the caution for the 6th car of Ross Chastain spinning out on the back straightaway ultimately killed them. They were one of the cars of a couple others that decided to pit. Obviously, they got back in the traffic, and they knew it wasn't going to be enough time, especially with the amount of laps we had left. And they were part of a little bit of the carnage towards the end of that race and the finish where they were bumping off a lot of cars, slipping and sliding. Blaney finished 11th. I mean, you have such a good race car towards the end. You feel like you've got it all, and then all of a sudden, yellow, and it just screwed Ryan Blaney's day. I mean, he had a really good race car. But the beauty is all the Penske cars ran strong. They've got speed for the mile and a half, and that'll help them going towards Atlanta in a couple of weeks. Number 4, driver recap, Chase Elliott. I'm absolutely gutted. We were the best car today. I mean, we didn't lead the most laps, but we were the best car. Chase Elliott, qualifying obviously set up by 100 points because qualifying got ran up because we had weather yesterday. We started in the 10th position. Well, actually moved up to 8th because some of the Gibbs cars had a little penalty and they had started the rear of the field. Chase Elliott had a great car in the long runs. You could tell towards the end leading up to the competition yellow, and he was catching the top 2 leaders, which were Harvick and Truex and Logano at the time, I believe. Elliott had good long run speed, and that ultimately carried through the rest of stage one. He got up towards the front, won stage one, second stage win of the season. Then we were so good in the second stage, and we won stage number 2. 3 stage wins, 3 playoff points so far for Chase Elliott, which is big. And late in the race, if it had gone green the rest of the way, the 9 car had everybody covered. That's how good he was in the long runs. That car was so strong, it could pull away. Not so good in the short runs, but obviously good in the long runs. The last pit stop, it was a good pit stop. We were a little bit behind Blaney. It felt like we were going to get him in the long runs. And then we spin out because we cut a tire because of a loose valve stem, which holds the air in the tire, and it ultimately came loose and popped the tire, and we knocked in the wall, fell a lot down, finished 26. I'm disappointed to finish. I'm not going to lie, because if we didn't have any cautions and if we weren't the caution, I think Elliott was going to catch Blaney, who was the leader, through the pit cycles, because there were a couple other guys that are also on different strategies, but they would eventually have to pit. Elliott was going to catch Blaney, and he was going to have everybody covered, and he was going to get his 7th career victory. But you know what? I mean, we still have stage points. We're 7th in the points still. I mean, well, 6th, but, Denny Hamlin had a bad day, even though he had the win at Daytona. We still are in the top 16 in points, so I can at least be happy about that. But I want to go to California next week, and I want to get a top 10 finish. It's crucial to get top 10 and get some momentum going. But another thing to take away from Elliott, we had speed today. All the Chevys had speed. All the Hendrick cars were strong. And some of the Ganassi cars, some of the Richard Childress cars, they showed speed all day. I mean, the Hendrick cars were the best of the Chevy camp. They have speed, and that's going to help them for the 1.5 miles. Obviously, it's a new Camaro body this year, and it's also going to help them for the playoff race later this year at Vegas. If all 4 of them are part of that, it'll be the beginning of a new round, the round of 12. And it's going to help them. I mean, it'll be different track temps, different time of the day, but still, it helps them, and it helps them going forward for Atlanta. So that's a couple of positive things to look out for, and plus we won 3 stages, so we have the 3rd most playoff points behind Denny Hamlin and Joey Logano, obviously. And number 5, the racing. Oh my gosh, these restarts, it's like literally hold on to your shoulders, or just hold on to something, because these guys 3, 4, 5 wide on these restarts, and sometimes I'm thinking, how are these guys not crashing? I mean, they're all over the place, all bunched together. That's obviously with the 1.5 mile package, 550 horsepower package that we have provides close racing on these restarts. I honestly think this Las Vegas race was better than the last 2 races last year because, they are together for a couple laps, then they get spread out. They were a little close for about 10, 12 laps for the most part today, and then they get a little bit spread out as the longer the run goes, and handling starts to become a factor even with, reduction in horsepower. But the restarts were so much fun. I mean, there are times where there should have been a big one. Ultimately, there was a big one towards the end when Byron and Eric Jones and Kyle Larson and Ryan Blaney and all those guys, John Nemechek, all started hitting each other towards the end, coming to the finish because everyone's jockeying for the best possible position you could possibly get. But it was some good racing at Vegas, and I think that's a lot to look forward to with Atlanta coming up. Hopefully with Fontana, we hope the racing's good there because, obviously we're trying to figure out the 2-mile tracks, that track, as well as Michigan, which are basically sister tracks, as well as, the playoff race later this year in Vegas. Hopefully it's huge for the racing itself. And it was a good race overall, and I enjoyed it very, very much. And just a little closing note to talk about Ryan Newman. Obviously, we all saw what happened last Monday night at the end of the Daytona 500. We were wondering, is he even alive? Then Steve O'Donnell announces he's got 9 life-threatening injuries, which means he's alive. The next day, he's talking to doctors, which is big. And then on Wednesday, it absolutely made my day, and I hope it made every race fan's day, even if you're not a fan of Ryan Newman. It made your day. He had a picture with him and his 2 little girls, lovely girls. Statement from Roush was that he was walking, and he was playing with his girls. He was joking around, which was awesome news. But then a couple hours later, Ryan Newman walking out of the Halifax Medical Center with his 2 little girls, being filmed by Chrissy Newman. I can't even put into words how relieving and how amazing that was. We all needed that because we were wondering, is Ryan Newman still with us? Is he alive? It was so amazing to see Ryan Newman walk out of that Halifax Medical Center with his 2 little girls. It was big. Roush made a statement earlier today saying that Ryan Newman's got a head injury. It might mean a concussion, but they didn't really say it was a concussion, but that's what most people are assuming. But there are no broken bones in his body, which is big. And it's going to take time for him to recoup and regroup. And hopefully when he gets doctor's clearance and NASCAR clearance, he can come back to the 6 car and compete. So it seems like for the time being, even though it was a one-race deal today for Ross Chastain, I got a feeling he'll be in the 6 car next weekend in Fontana, as well as racing in Phoenix in the desert in about 2 weeks. But it was amazing to see Ryan Newman out. I hope you're doing okay, Newman, and we want you back at the track as soon as possible to see you competing, because you're the toughest guy to pass on the racetrack, and that makes it fun. And Ross Chastain did a good job. I mean, he got 1 point at the end of stage 1 for the 6 car. Then they got stuck back in the traffic, and obviously later in the race they had contact with Kurt Busch, and they brought up the caution that led to the wild race dash to the finish towards the end. But he did a good job, and it was a good performance for the 6 team overall. And it was a race worthy for Ryan Newman, and I hope he gets back soon, because we miss him. But we're glad that you're still with us and that you can walk, which is amazing, not just for you and your girls, but for everybody that wants to see you back in a race car. Meaning you can drive, and that's just wonderful. So up next, it's Fontana, California, going out to sunny Cali, where the Hollywood stars will be shining big, and they'll be racing at Auto Club Speedway, owned by Roger Penske. The big questions going in: will Kyle Busch dominate like last year, or will the racing that we saw today carry over next week and elevate more contenders towards the front? We shall see, obviously. So subscribe, like. Congrats to Joey Logano, locked into the playoffs. The West Coast swing is underway. I'll see you next week.